heard the Florida State Heisman Trophy winner on earlier in the Rich Eisen show today, and here's what he had to say about voting for Jameis Winston.
No, and I've said it before. You know, if I have a Florida State guy that's worthy of my vote, I'll give it to him. But Jameis' season hadn't been up to par as far as statistics and those types of things. But one of the things he has done is he's won. He's won games, and he's brought his team back and helped his team win all of their games this year. So, but unfortunately, the Heisman goes to the best player, and that's not him this year.
Brent Musburger joins us now on the Rich Eisen show. I'm Suzy Shuster, sitting in for Rich Eisen. And Brent, what's your take on that? What were you thinking when you heard Charlie talk about not voting for Seminole Jameis Winston?
Well, I suppose, Suzy, I'm surprised simply because he is a former Heisman Trophy winner and a Seminole, and Jameis Winston are a winner a year ago. But I have to say, I echo that. I didn't vote for Winston either. I voted for Marcus Mariota, and it was probably a selfish reason, very personal on my part. I just did not think that Jameis Winston deserved to join Archie Griffin as the only two-time winner of the Heisman Trophy. And I must say that in my case, it had absolutely nothing to do with the football field. Obviously, Winston is undefeated as a college quarterback, a record that stands by itself, speaks for itself. He's had great comebacks this year. But he betrayed, I think, a trust in himself with a selfish act with his outburst on campus, because he'd been in trouble. He had been charged, and he was charged by a woman with rape. The prosecutor didn't believe he could get a conviction, so he didn't have to go to trial over it. I would probably have looked beyond that simply because the state's attorney decided to look beyond it and say that he didn't have enough evidence. But when Winston jumped up and acted like a schoolboy on spring break, I said, no, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I like to vote for adults, for people like Charlie. I can remember many of the fellows that I voted for. A year ago, I did vote for Jameis as the Heisman Trophy winner. So I guess I'm making a long story endless. Obviously, I didn't even know what Charlie had said until I heard your soundbite, Suzy.
Right. But it's so interesting because I guess two things come from what you said. The difference between voting for him last year and this year. What was the change in your thought process on that?
Oh, it was strictly off the playing
Sure.
field. It was strictly. I think that the award carries with it integrity, behavior, certain things. I know that it's not written out on the ballot. I know that it basically says that you're voting for the best football player. But I could make a very, very strong argument that the best college football player this year is the man I voted for, and he's going to be a runaway winner from every indication, Marcus Mariota, the quarterback at Oregon. And when you take a look at Mariota's off-the-field behavior and his record as a student athlete, and he's a tremendous student up in Eugene, Oregon, and I have been around him. I guess I look beyond someone who's was caught and charged with driving 85 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Having done that once or twice myself, mm-hmm. Suzy, mm-hmm. I could look beyond that with Mariota. So mm-hmm. with me, it was a pretty easy choice, and I followed that up by voting for Alabama wide receiver Amari Cooper, mm-hmm. who I've seen several times this year, and stands alone as a wide receiver with full knowledge on my part that it's going to be a quarterback.
Sure.
Who 90% of the time is going to win the award.
You know, it's funny you brought up the integrity. I wrote this. I was looking at the mantra for the Heisman. The Heisman Memorial Trophy annually recognizes the outstanding college football player whose performance best exhibits pursuit of excellence with integrity. And you brought that up. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up because this is such a huge trophy. And because Archie Griffin came on the show before you. And here's a guy who encompasses class, as did Tim Brown. So many other players that were the embodiment of class and integrity. And I think that is what made voting for this so interesting this year.
Yeah, I agree. And it was clear from, the straw polls that are taken, Suzy, and Joe Tessitore at ESPN, he does a very, very accurate poll, and he begins right around the 1st of October, as I recall. Mm-hmm. But right from the get-go, it was clear that Jameis Winston did not have the support of the voters out there. Mm-hmm. And it seemed very unlikely, even at that early stage in the voting, that he was going to be a repeat winner. And, there's a couple of things. Okay, he's not invited to the ceremony. He's not one of the three finalists. Probably finished in the top 5. That's just a guess on my part. I have no inside knowledge whatsoever about that. But if I'm a Jimbo Fisher, I'm happy. And I look at it from a different viewpoint as a coach. That's a pretty strenuous March through December. And I think that Mariota is going to find that it wears on you, and you have to go to the banquets. You wind up doing a lot of interviews. You sign a lot of autographs, and it is distracting. And if you look back at the records of Heisman Trophy winners in bowl games and BCS championship games, et cetera, it's not a strong record in terms of wins and losses. Far more often when I've been around some of the Heisman Trophy winners in that game, they struggle. And Winston, remember, did struggle for 3 quarters last year against Auburn before he really righted the ship on the last drive for the Seminoles to take them down for the championship. So if I'm an insider at Florida State, I'm happy that I've got Winston's full attention for the build-up to the Rose Bowl and the match against Oregon.
We spoke to Mike Tirico earlier on the Rich Eisen Show. We talked about the disconnect between players who have won the Heisman going on to have successful careers in the NFL. What about Marcus Mariota? How successful do you think he can be on the next level?
Well, Suzy, I think he's going to be successful now. I have to hesitate a little bit because sometimes you're at the mercy of which team drafts you.
The system.
And if you get with a bad organization that can't help you out, either offensively and especially defensively, you can wind up struggling. But it has always seemed to me that Mariota possesses the one quality that separates that elite group of quarterbacks, of which there may be 5 in the National Football League, and that is you must be a quick, decisive thinker. Mm-hmm. There is no time to hesitate in the National Football League. The seconds that you had in college disappear in the NFL and in a heartbeat. And if your mind doesn't function, that you take a quick picture and you see exactly where that receiver is going to break free at that moment, and if you can't fire that ball accurately, you're going to struggle. We see it time after time after time. I would be cautious about Jameis Winston in that regard. I think the combine and the interviews and the tests that they do in Indianapolis will be more important to Winston than they will be to Marcus. I think they know what they get with Marcus. He can extend the play a little bit. He's got good speed. I can tell you right now, he's a quick, decisive thinker. Of that, there is no doubt whatsoever. So if I had to make a choice between the two as the first pick in the NFL, if I needed a quarterback, it would, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it would be Mariota right now.
Hands down.
Having said that, if Oakland falls into that position, I like what I've seen so far with Derek Carr, then I'm simply trading out of it and picking up 3 or 4 players.
Fascinating. 20 seconds left. What's your prediction for the national championship in this first ever playoff run?
Well, I like Florida State to play Alabama. I find it interesting that when you look at the point spread, Suzy, of the 38 bowl games that we've got, there's only a handful of them that are even close to 10 points, and both of these games are sitting right around 9.5 right now. The Ducks are an overwhelming favorite on the Knolls. I think they've got the wrong favorite. Alabama, of course, I'm more familiar with this year. Very powerful team. Buckeyes are going to have trouble with the defensive front. of Alabama, but at least Urban Meyer knows a lot about Nick Saban. As far as Florida State is concerned as a school, I have long considered them the only school that I'm around regularly that could compete in the SEC West. I think they're that strong. Yes, I know they've struggled. They've had to come from behind. But the ACC may have been underrated this year. And you only have to look at that last weekend and see what they did to the SEC East to figure that out. So I'm going to go with the Florida State-Alabama final.
And I think
And
most
after
people,
that, both teams are on their own, Suzy. I'll let you pick it.
Most people are going to be clinging to your statements a lot more than mine. Brent, I thank you so much for joining us. I hope you know what you mean to my husband, Rich.
I know, Rich. Make sure you say hello.
Oh, I will. I mean,
love watching the guys on the NFL Network, and my brother says to say hello to you. He's off on the island in Hawaii. That rascal.
He's having a rough time of it, isn't he? Would you say hi to your entire family, please, for me, and send them my best? And again, okay. I so appreciate your time joining us.
To you and the family. Take care.
To you as well. Take care.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.